Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am very pleased to introduce Vasia Toxavidi. She's a relationship coach, she's a relationship psychotherapist,
Mm.
and interpersonal coach with 15 years of experience. And I'm so grateful to have her on this program. And we're going to talk about some questions and talk about her experience, her expertise, and how you can benefit from some of the expertise and knowledge that she has gleaned over the years. Thank you so much again, Vasia, for being with me on this podcast. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you a couple of introductory questions. Your kind of your education, your background, and your experience specifically with helping couples. So tell us a bit about your interest as a psychotherapist and what led you into that field, and maybe just a little bit of historical background about that experience.
Mm. Um, well, my first degrees, as I told you, I left Greece when I was quite young, and I came to UK to study. So my first degree was in psychology, and after that degree, psychology is quite vast. So it's not like,
Broad,
yeah,
yeah,
it's a
broad.
broad subject. So it's not like you finish university and then yes, now I'm gonna know what I'm gonna do. It's so many different layers. So I felt I was very confused to what I wanted to do. So after my first my bachelor's degree, I decided to do a master's degree in applied psychology, which is a degree in uh, again, it's quite broad on psychology, but at the same time less broad than your bachelor's. It focuses more on some aspects of psychology. And during that time, I remember I started doing a work experience with autistic children, and also was working with some children that had some issues with anxiety and some antisocial behaviors. And I realized, maybe I would like to explore a little bit about child development. So I went off my continue my journey, as I like to call journey everything in life. Our journey, we all have a journey in this life, but also a journey in our relationships, a journey in our careers. I like to bring that. And so I did my second master's degree in child development and learning, which was interesting, and it was more specific in a way, because I learned a lot about child development, and a lot about how children grow, the attachment, all this stuff, and how we as adults behave, by our experiences in childhood and so on. But then there was still something missing. So in me, I was still in the search of what is clicking that I want to do more in my career, what makes me really curious and passionate and motivated. So I kept doing and working. I also work as an assistant psychologist and psychiatric clinics, which I realized that was not exactly what I was looking for. It was a great experience, but maybe that was not what I was looking to do long term. So I decided to enroll in a counseling diploma, and I think this is where it clicked, because I always say the story, and it's true. This is how it all came out. It's because, in these diplomas, we do role playing, where one of your colleagues is a therapist, and another colleague is the client, so would do role plays. And I started observing that most of the people who were studying together and they were supposed to be my clients in this role playing, they would bring me issues about their relationships. So when I was the therapist, so I started putting the puzzle together and said, they bring all the relationship stuff, and I find exciting. Then my friends bring all the relationship stuff. My family talks about relationship, my sister. So I'm like, I like it. I find it so exciting, so interesting work, how the how relationships work, the people, like we as humans click together, and the work we have to do, and how we think with each other. I said, I have to look into that. Maybe I would like to do something into working with couples and relationships therapy. So, and after that, the moment I took the decision, I was completely clear without doubt that that's what I wanted to do. Everything fell into place, and then I found the right masters, And so I did my 3 years master's in relationship psychotherapy with Relate, which I really enjoyed this training because while you're doing the master's, you automatically you start working with couples. So you go immediately into the deep, of course, with the right supervision and everything. But I like that because it gave me immediately the experience of studying and practice. And I think that's the best way to work. So that was great.
Yeah.
And then I worked a lot as a therapist. I worked for Mind as well, charity. I worked for Relate afterwards as a therapist. And then I created my own private practice where we are now. I left, and this is where I'm focusing now.
Okay, brilliant. I think what your experience is very beneficial for young people, especially who they're not sure what field they're interested in the topic of psychology, but as you say, it is quite broad, and they're not too sure
Mm,
how to kind of direct themselves. And sometimes we think that life is quite linear.
mm.
We get the idea of what we want to do, and then we just head there, and maybe that works for some people, but I think for most people you just have to try it and see and figure it out, which I think has been your experience, and mine to a large extent as well.
Yes,
So
and Chris, I I think that we are not the same people. I believe there's no way every human does not evolve. Even with somebody who doesn't do any work on themselves, there will be still a difference between who they are now to who they were a year ago. So we're constantly changing. So, and I think it's about that you might have to trust that maybe I'll take my time. And it's just for me just to keep looking, just be curious and have a trust of in yourself that you will come to you, you will find a way. I think when we try to force things and control things, it put us into situations or circumstances where we are not there in a conscious way. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So and for example, when we're going to talk about our couples, I see a lot of couples that come and they come to see me and we work together, and I realized that when they decided to be together, they were not conscious about why am I marrying this person, why I want to be in a relationship, why am I doing what am I doing. I think they were all this outside noise that, and they had to force things to happen. I'm getting old, I have children, and and I think this is something about what I was saying before. That's why I'm bringing it, and I'm aware that we're going to talk a lot about couples work and therapy. So, and in general, I think it's about following our intuition and not forcing things, and have a little bit of patience and trust that we will find. And once you believe in yourself that I trust myself, it will come to me. I will see when it's right. I think that's the best thing, and I think this is a great base for a great relationship to have with yourself.
Wow, thank you for that. Those are some very strong words of wisdom there. I really appreciate that. um let me ask you about your experience with couples. With your experience with the in fact, let me start here. What would you say is one of the biggest challenges you experience when couples come to you with maybe individual issues or marital issues? What's in your experience, what one of the big more common issues that you see?
Okay, let's see. There's so many different issues. Well, number one,
Yeah.
I think a very different, bro, but I think, probably you've seen it as a huge issue around communication.
Okay.
Communication linked with expectations and assumptions, which, I do understand. That it's completely natural for me because when we have two people, two different individuals, strangers with different experiences, different family backgrounds, upbringing, nowadays different cultures, different languages, and suddenly they come together. They're gonna to live together, to create a family, to link all of that. It's gonna be because we are for some reason humans think that the other person is a mirror sometimes, unless they like when I realized that when people think that, okay, so Say, for example, if I don't know, the expectations we have or the assumptions we have is because we're expecting the other person to behave as we do, and that's a trap, and that's create a communication problem because people are based on that and they don't understand. Hold on, here you have a different person. You have a person with different perspectives because they grew up differently. How are you going to communicate that? Just it's almost like they go into battlefields without exploring the options of, okay, let's stand. You know how you have in all these historical films of two wars and they standing, and and they talk, and then they go woo. So sometimes the couples just go into battlefield, but instead of standing and just trying to see, okay, what are we gonna do here? Can we find a solution? I mean, okay, the couples who do come to me, they do come to find a solution sometimes, not always. um but so going back to your question, communication is a big issue, which for me it's usually based on misguided or misunderstanding, assumptions and perceptions that are completely different, because communication is not just one thing, it has layers around it, which is based, different perceptions, different assumptions, expectations, belief system, values. All this are go around the communication problems and communication conflicts, which that's why I said is huge communication. Another issue then, it's a lot of lack of desire and sexual intimacy, problems with sexual intimacy and physical intimacy, which usually, that has to do a lot with emotional intimacy, I think. So when a couple comes and they have problems, they say, well, we are the perfect couple, but we cannot have sex, we don't like sex. Then immediately, and okay, let's go beyond that. It's sometimes not just sex, because it's connected with emotional intimacy. Sometimes the sexual part, it's just how people connect to the sex differently. And what I like to talk about, and I work a lot with my couples, and I've noticed that, is what I call inside out, outside in. Have you ever been aware of it? So, for example, and I take an example, not always, but I give an example. Sometimes men, in order to feel emotionally connected, they feel it through sex. When they have sex, they can feel the emotional connection. So they're outside in. While women sometimes they want to feel the emotional connection in order to feel sexually, connected. So I call it inside out. So, and I think there was a theory around it. Anyways, not something that I just came up with. It is I just created my own kind of verbal idea about it. So I think we work a lot about that when it comes around sex. Of course, there are other issues. So we have the sex, which also linked to desire, which is a kind of a complicated matter. The desire and sex and how it works in couples, especially couples who have been long term, for a long time together, or after having children, all this. Um, so of course we have the arguments, conflicts, which I like to put with the communication. So I put it under the same umbrella. What else do I find very interesting? These are the main ones. And of course, something I've noticed a lot, I'm working, and I see a lot of couples coming to me, is that some people, one of the two has decided that they want to leave, they want to divorce, but they cannot do it. So they come, and in order to support them, like they come with the idea that I want to work, but I think they've already decided that they want to leave. It's just that they want to do it in a safe space. And I think that's why I always give to my couples, I always say, I'm going to see you for an assessment together, but then I want to see you individually before we start the couples therapy sessions, because I want to see the story of each person, and that gives them the stage and the opportunity to say how they want to work or how they feel. So I'm aware of what's happening. Because sometimes if they don't have that individual space, they might not be as honest, or they might not be as completely transparent with me. So yeah, that's some of the things I've been noticing a
Wow.
lot, and of
Wow.
course so many other. But
Well, you covered some really very interesting topics there. But going back to the communication, you said that sometimes they're not quite aligned. Like if one person has an expectation that's going in this direction, the other person's expectation is going in that direction, then there is like a bit of misalignment. How do you help them work through that?
First of all, they have to understand why they have this, the what expectations each one has from the other, they have these expectations, and what each one can do out of these expectations and what they cannot, and how they can accept that. So it's almost like bringing them a little bit back to reality through understanding of, why the other, because, don't forget the expectations we have. They are not just expectations we have just out of nowhere. It's expectations because we have been programmed to have, or this is how we grew up to have. For example, say if a mother cooks and does everything for her boy, and irons, cooks, I don't know, clean, then the expectation perhaps of somebody who marries a woman is, I expect her to cook and iron for me. But and then it's like they want to do that because her expectation is, I saw my mother working, and it's about working and being dynamic. And so this comes, it's their different expectations, but they're coming from different experiences. That's why they're projected, to each other. So, and it's very important not to blame. It's about make them understand why they have these expectations, where it comes from, and how they can be okay if these expectations are not being met, because this is the other person and might not be what you expect or what you want them to do. Are you okay with what they are? If not, why not? Let's look at that. So it's like scratching really a little bit the
Yeah.
surface to see, and through understanding. Um, and I think it grounds people to understand why somebody has this expectation out of me, and this one, it's almost like when it's voiced why I have these expectations for you, and I have them because of that. It's almost most clear suddenly to them. It's almost like they don't have the time, or they they don't talk about this stuff, so it all gets messed up. But once it's out there, they talk about it, you bring it out, then it's almost like a grounding happens, and then they start seeing each other in a different way. I'm telling you, I love couples work. It's like magic happens when and sometimes sometimes it just, when they realize it, just talking and watching, and I'm like, wow, this is so fascinating, and I read something and I said the therapist is not somebody who fixes stuff. It's somebody who helps people to fix themselves. And I like that because this is what it is. And I try to bring that into the couple, not only the couples, even the people I work individually. I'm a therapist where I say, look, I'm here, but I'm not gonna fix everything for you. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to help you understand that you can fix things for yourselves or for yourself, because at the end of the day, we're all responsible for our lives, for our everything. So if somebody goes and says, "Oh, I want somebody to fix this," they're already on the wrong path, because it's never going to be fixed by an outside source. Yes, you can be encouraged, you can be guided, you can be advised. Although I don't like the word advice; it's very formal. You can be given suggestions, ideas, exercises, yes, towards working towards changing something. So, and that's why I'm clear to people at work. And I think, people want to hear that. They want to be reminded of that they are strong, they are capable of change. They are not victims of a situation if they really want to. And the ones who do want to change and work on things, they do make it. I am a great how do you say, I've seen
Advocate.
that. Yes, a great advocate, and also I've seen it a lot in my work.
I think it's powerful to be able to empower people And it just gives you an idea of how impactful the work that you're doing is, because just what you said about, you're there with the couple and they're all of a sudden starting to see each other. I was I was at church on Sunday and I said namaste to someone. The person was passing by, and the person said, "Do you know what namaste means?" And I said, "I don't know. Is it like, hope you're having a great day?" They said, "No, it means my soul sees your soul." And I thought, wow, that's profound. And
Mm.
it's incredible that two people can be in a relationship and not see each other. And when you were saying just now about the, sitting there and watching them, kind of all of a sudden the scales are falling off their eyes and they're seeing each other. That is powerful. That's
It
powerful.
is. And I like what, yes, exactly. And I like what you said, my soul sees your soul. Because I think, below everything, we are not just a mind and a body, we're also a soul. So, okay, it's so much deep. My soul sees your soul. But I think it's a lot of the connection we say that has to have a soul connection, has to have something about this sense of um, spiritual soul connection. So yeah, I like that. Yes, so it's about
Let me ask you about this concept of the spiritual soul connection. How do you experience that in your personal life, if you feel comfortable sharing, and also when you interact with your couples?
uh, like, what do you mean? Like, how
You
do I
know,
experience
the
soul
spiritual,
connection?
the
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 spiritual.
spiritual. Yeah.
Well, spirituality for me is it's something that it's a very controversial subject, isn't it? Some people don't like it, some people like it. I think it's a very personal aspect, personal idea, understanding of what spiritual is. What is spiritual for me might not be for someone else, and I accept that for everyone. But I think spirituality is not far from just focusing on yourself. So how I experience spirituality, I really believe, and not for long, but I truly believe that it's about being centered in myself, especially with the work I do. Oh, are you there? You're frozen.
Yes, I am.
And I do that also. I'm a therapist, so I have to be centered. I have to be completely neutral. I have to be centered in myself with all the information I receive for people, because I'm like a container. You know, I have to contain my couples. I have to contain the emotions of a person who comes to see me. So if I'm all over the place, I will not be able to do it. So I try to be centered by actually what I do is I do meditation. Not always, I'm not every day like that, but I try to do as much as I can, and I have specific mantras that I listen that calm my nervous system down. So for me, that's spirituality. Help me to get centered, to get grounded, to start focusing on myself. Get connected with my breathing. Breath The breathing is like, without breath we are not alive. So it's about being connected to that. And also all that gives you a sense of calmness, that I think it's not only for my work. I can take it to my personal life. you know um, when you're calmer, you're more connected, you're more grounded, you see things differently, you observe things differently, you are not reacting. um, so and that helps me to bring that into my work. But actually sometimes I do ask, usually my individual clients, I do this work, whoever I feel, of course, it could benefit, they could benefit. I don't do with everyone, but there are some people I believe, like, if we do some um, breathing exercises, some visualization stuff, it might help them, might ground them. And usually people who suffer from anxiety, it helps them a lot. So that's part of spirituality. And it's not just thinking, oh, spiritual, paranormal. It's not. It's about, for me, spirituality is about being in contact who you are, and through, taking space for yourself. And I try to bring that into my client work as well, to help them understand that this is your spiritual part, where you get to understand who you are, who you truly are. The soul is part of our spiritual self. Our soul is about understanding what is our truth. I truly believe that if we are not true to ourselves through our choices, we cannot be really happy. I think people who are not fulfilled, who are not happy, it's because they haven't found who they truly are. They're always going around circles, trying to fit in to things who and situations who does not represent who they truly are. And when they find who they truly are and what is that makes them happy and truly fits with their soul or their purpose, then everything changes. So this is spirituality that I try to bring into work, these ideas, and I try to bring that into my own personal life.
Okay, thank you. Um, you said sometimes you feel like you're a container for
Mm-hmm.
your couples and the situation. What impact does your work actually have on you, your own mental psychological state? Because you the the intensity of helping these people overcome the challenges.
Mm. You know how many times people ask me, what do you work? I say, I'm a psychotherapist. Oh my God, I would never be able to do that work. How do you deal afterwards with all these problems? Aren't you exhausted? And, you know, first of all, I truly believe that there is also, as you already probably know, we're all trained how not to take everything in within us. But also, that's why we also have supervision work. We have someone that we can talk about some client cases because, it's not out of 10, maybe one or two cases might be so intense that it might occupy a little bit your thoughts. Not because it affects you, but maybe because you feel a more sense of responsibility how I'm gonna do this work right. And that's why we have supervision. And I think supervision helps a lot to have someone, a colleague that, you can talk about your difficulties because don't forget we're all human. Maybe I bring some of my stuff like when I don't even realize. So somebody who is an outsider can actually help me to see, like, Vasia, why you say that to this person, or why you did that thing into your therapy? Is that something about you? And that helps me work better, and also, also talk about this stuff to someone else, like take it out and be guided as well to do the right thing. So supervision helps a lot to help to find that balance, not to take things into me, and also try to do the best for my clients. And you know and also, this meditation, as I said, keeps me grounded, is sometimes after or before. Yeah, I mean, it's about that, how I try to contain. I think, now it has been much easier, through practice. It gets everything much easier not to get into a client. But sometimes when I feel like, maybe I like, oh, this client, I feel, because we have this projection. Probably it,
Mhm.
like what clients project to you when identify. So immediately when I get something like that, I try to bring that case into supervision when something doesn't click, or I feel overly attached to this client or to this case, and I want to help, because there's always happening this projection within therapy that you have to be careful of.
Wow. That's very, very wise. Thank you so much. Um, Let me ask you about individual mental health challenges on the marriage or on the relationship. What's been your experience of that, and how do you help people to work? I mean, I know that's also a big question, and there are a multiplicity of mental health challenges that can feature with one member of the relationship perhaps experiencing some trauma, and needing to overcome that, and the other member is like, how do I do it? How do I help he or she?
Usually it's, what I've experienced is, for example, I have experienced postpartum depression, like, when a woman goes through that after giving birth, and how that, and it's very difficult time, because it's not something, it's somebody understands. So, but apart from that, also it's the depression. Let's look at the depression better. Sometimes when one partner is going through depression and the other one is not aware of it, or anxiety or OCD. Um, First of all, for people to come together, that means that they want to understand better how to help each other. But usually it's the person who has to deal with the other person who has a mental health issues that wants to find a solution. Usually what I see is that the person who does have the mental health issues, either an anxiety or depression, they're coming just because the other person wants. And I understand that, because they're going through what they're going through, so they don't see it as something they really at that point want to work. But I think it's a good step that the other person tries to bring that person into therapy, because sometimes I've seen it had helped the communication much better, in terms of the person start talking about what they're going through, having that space, that safe space, where they can explore ways of how they can support each other, and also for the other person to give them, they're going through depression, it gives them some sense of empowerment, that they're not the victims, they can do some things differently. So and I give exercises to them about having, every time to discuss, the person who's going through something, and has to discuss to them about their feelings, so keeping that open air communication channel open, because it's very easy for somebody to avoid talking about it, or when they're going through mental health issues. um, because don't remember, the base of a lot of that stuff is shame, the feeling of shame that it might happen or come from other issues. So people may be closed, or they don't want to talk about it. So the only thing they can achieve in a couple is avoidance. So keeping that, supporting and encouraging this, communication channel open through exercises, it's important. um, Also, sometimes I ask the other person to be like a checkpoint, like, if they have to do something about self-care routine, nudge them. Okay, are you going to go out? Shall we do something? Like, being that kind of support system for them, but a little bit of encouraging them to do things. Oh, I don't want to do, I want to stay in. Oh, come on, let's do it together. Let's go. Let's stop. So bringing that self-care, option a little bit more, help them in that. Um, so it's yeah, it's so many different things. It's about, how the other person is going to keep encouraging the other, because issue like depression or, anxiety, and let's talk especially depression. My experience, I've seen it's about having this support network, this support system that can help them go out of that hole in a way. And if your partner can be that beginning, that first step, it's so important, and be aware of that, because then that person can actually start finding also another support network for these people. um, but I'm also aware that whoever goes through a mental health issue, it's very important that they do their own individual therapy, because what they're going through, um, it's their own stuff. So in couple work, it helps, but sometimes it's the other person that has to support them to go out of it, or, so that's why I think if they do their own work and the couple's work, is so much better to help somebody go out, even if they don't do it at the same time. If somebody starts to do their own individual work in therapy and then come as a couple, it's going to be much easier. I don't know if that answered your question,
No,
but
no, no, that's very good. Um, I think about the both on both sides actually. So you have the individual with who's experiencing the whatever trauma they're overcoming or depression, and then having to maybe not be able to articulate that to their spouse and just tell them that this is what I'm going through now, and then the other one trying their best to support, and perhaps worry that they're not doing it right, or
mm,
um, but sounds like you're doing a very good job to kind of to support your couples and individuals as well. um is there any questions you want to ask me? That, like, we're going
yeah.
off track right now. Just is
Well,
there any?
you,
Sure.
yeah. I'm aware that you're doing an 8-week program,
Okay.
which I like it a lot, for your couples.
Yeah.
Would you like just to tell me a little bit what is every week, what it contains a little bit? Because I like to get these ideas for my work as well.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you for that. So the program is a mashup of two main concepts. With the Gottman Institute, I do the training on the sound relationship house theory, and how that can help couples to be able to understand each other and be able to kind of communicate better, to be able to plan their future, to be able to manage conflict, and so on and so forth. And so that is one of the fundamental processes or theories I use, but also with my own personal experience with my master's degree, and this concept of couples not fully being able to express their expectations, and especially when expectations are like doing this, like two ships in the night. Um, in my master's degree, I studied the psychological contract, and the psychological contract is that expectation that you have in your mind, where you have the expectation of your spouse or someone at work, where you don't fully articulate or have an agreement about what that expectation is, but it is real in your mind. And sometimes people, there are unwritten kind of rules and expectations that people have between each other. And although they're not formally or explicitly explained or agreed upon, they work, and they produce some really good relationship and some success. The problem with that is, because it isn't up in the open, and it isn't properly agreed upon, the
Mm.
chances of breach or misunderstanding is great. And so my work in my master's degree was to figure out a solution to help couples to make their expectations, turn their expectations from expectations to agreements,
I like
so that
that.
yeah. So they go through like a 7-step process, where they do what I call the investigation, which is where they explore what their expectations are.
Mhm.
What are my expectations of this person or this marriage, and what can I do, what can I offer to them, and vice versa. So they both kind of, and I give them a tool to fill out, like a worksheet. And then that's in the first week. In the second week, they come and they have what I call a sit down, which is where they come and they discuss what their expectations are and their offerings are to each other.
Mm.
And then they start to draft up a list of agreements or covenants. And the idea is that these covenants will form the basis of their new and improved relationship, because it's taking the risk of the psychological contract breach out of the question, and allowing people to have more control over what they understanding themselves, what their boundaries and what their expectations are, and articulating that as clearly as possible to the other one, and vice versa. So the sit down provides them the opportunity to do that. And the sit down is what I call the first of a 3-tier covenants refinement process. So these agreements, I refer to them as covenants. And so the first year is obviously starting to draft up what these agreements are, what these expectations are. And then the second tier is the negotiation. And in the negotiation, it isn't like what when you're like in the business world, when you're negotiating a deal, one guy comes in and he said, he's kind of negotiating from a position of power and strength, and he gets all the positives or the good things, and the other guy leaves with nothing, and he leaves a winner and the guy leaves a loser.
Mm.
That is not that is
Mm.
not what I mean by negotiation. My negotiation is about figuring out how to make these agreements as mutually beneficial as possible.
Mm. Really nice.
Yeah, so so that allows them to be able to even use the wording, decide on what the wording will be. So that's the second tier. That's in negotiation. The third tier is closing the deal, and this is again refining those agreements, deciding um, uh, to how you can make them as mutually beneficial as possible. Some couples might come out of the covenantal process with 10, 15, a list of covenants, and then so that's the closing the deal. Then the promise, and the promise allows them to be able to go through and actually promise to each other that yes, I'm going to do that, and they both agree and promise to each other. And then the last step is the sealing, and this is where it's all drafted up on on like a covenant document, and they sign it. They put their seal, as it were, on this document.
Mm.
Some bring that and they put it on their wall and they look at it and they remember all those covenants that they've made with each other. I see this covenant process or this covenant document as being very important in helping them to really establish what they want, what their expectations are as an individual, and for their relationship, both of them. And when they come and they meet each other, they're preventing any misunderstanding, any conflicts. In fact, the good thing about my program, if I may say so, is it allows couples to apply the Gottman method theory on sound of the sound relationship house theory,
Mm-hmm.
which we know works because it's like 50 years of the best relationship research. So the first layer of the sound relationship house is this idea of building love maps, where you try to understand your spouse as deeply and as comprehensively as you can, and that this covenantal process facilitates that. It allows you to do that and to commit to we will always seek to understand each other. And so like another level is conflict management. So in their research, so you got John Gottman and Bob Levison. They were professors at the University of Washington. I always get the University of Washington and Washington University mixed up. And so they had what was called a love lab, and they had thousands of couples come in, and they would observe them. They decided we won't have any hypothesis at the outset. We will just observe the couples, and then we will, let our theories be grounded in what we observe in the data. And then as they watched these thousands of couples, they noticed that some were doing the right things. Some were just naturally doing the things that made their relationship healthy and strong. And they categorized those guys as the masters of relationship. And some were doing the things that made their relationship kind of, not so healthy and strong. And they call those guys the disasters. So you got the masters and the disasters. And they found that the masters were doing these seven principles. They were building love maps, which is understanding, taking the time to understand each other. They were expressing or experiencing fondness and admiration, which is where they really loved and appreciate the other one. And they kind of had a bit of a positive attitude towards each other, and they were in terms of this positive attitude. They found that the couples kind of had there were two types of couples. Some of them had a positive view of their spouse,
Mhm.
and everything their spouse did, not everything, but most of the things that their spouse did, they viewed it with a positive kind of spectacle.
Mm.
And then they had like a default negative perception of their spouse, and so they said that they call these the positive sentiment override and the negative sentiment override. So if, for example, one spouse would forget to do something for the other one, something important, let's say, one spouse asks the other one to fill the car, the fuel, filling the fuel because he or she is going to work early in the morning and they don't want to stop to the petrol station. They just want to jump in the car and go. And then the other one, and they wake up in the morning and they look, the car is nearly empty, and they've got this long drive trying to beat the traffic, and now they need to figure out how to find the thing. That person on the receiving end could look at that in a positive way, thinking, my spouse, he or she, they've been busy, and they probably forgot. That's positive.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're in a negative sentiment override, like, oh, they always do this, they're so careless and they don't think about me, and and so they say that for you to be in positive sentiment override, you need to have at least five positive things to one negative thing that's happening in the relationship.
Mm,
You
I
have
agree.
5 to 1 kind of, because one negative thing, if it was 50-50, one negative to one positive, then because the weight of one negative thing is the same as five positive things. So that's the positive, and then they focused on conflict management, and
Mm-hmm.
their focus on conflict management was, they say that conflict isn't resolved. It's not like conflict resolution or concept resolving conflicts, is more management, because they found that even couples who were categorized as the masters, they had certain, and you mentioned this actually, this in this very meeting, you said that some couples, because of where they're coming from, the individuals, because of where they're coming from and their backgrounds, they're going to always see a certain thing that way, and the other one is coming from a different background, he or she is going to always see the thing that way. And so they're always going to have this situation where they're not going to see eye to eye on a particular topic. And they found that there were these gridlock issues that the couples would, and they said actually about 69%, but 70% of the conflicts or the issues that the couples experienced were unresolvable. They were unresolvable. In that the man might see the topic a certain way, and the
Mm.
wife might see it differently, and and so it's about figuring out how to negotiate and make it work in the middle, and understand that actually, um if it's on finance, let me give you an example. So let's say the man has been working all his life and he's saving to buy a nice Ferrari, because that's his dream, and it's like 250,000 pounds, and just like, why are we spending 250,000 pounds on a Ferrari? And he said, well, I've been working all my life, blah blah blah. So he's got his reasons and he's got his dreams and his goals, and she does not agree. She thinks it's a waste of money, blah 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 blah. So a way that they can meet in the middle, so that he can have the fulfillment of that goal and dream, and she can save 250,000 pounds, is by maybe having sign up to a club where they can drive all these cars, at a fee every year, which is
Mm.
expensive probably, but not 250,000 pounds. And so they're both kind of fulfilling their dreams, or they're both finding some negotiation or figuring out how to manage that conflict. They said there were three different ways that conflicts were handled. are affecting conflict. So they say that sometimes, often in the in the relationship, there is one member of the marriage who is more dominant, or who is more who's a more dominant character,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
often likes to, or doesn't often take advice or be influenced by the other spouse. And so, being willing to allow your spouse to influence you and get involved in the decision making, um, being a part of, taking advice. So if and usually, actually, they say usually it's the man that who's not taking not allowing the wife to. So the data show that it was more the man that was on this, the side of not taking advice from the wife. So if she's advising him to do something to do with his career, or something to do with finance, or some planning, so some event, he should just pause and think, and then explore what she's trying to do and allow her to be able to influence him that way. Um, so that's the first one. The second one was dialoguing. So if they were not going to be able to resolve all these issues, if they were at least talking about it, then that's good. That the issue is still there, but they're able to talk it through. And the third one is taking a break, being able to self-soothe when you get physiologically aroused because the topic is so heated. And they said actually that they found that the disasters, the couples who were kind of always having not who were not doing so well in whose relationship were kind of going down the drain. They going down the drain is a very dramatic way of saying it. Sorry.
Okay. Za.
um, I may have to edit that out actually, but
Why?
it just sounds really kind of negative and dramatic. They found that there were four things that the 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 disasters were doing, which were kind of having a very bad impact on their marriage. So these were some destructive communication patterns, or communication styles. The first one they refer to as
Blame.
good, very
Is it?
good, criticism.
Huh?
Yeah, very good. So they, instead of complaining about the issue, that's kind of, let's say, the wife asks the husband. I always make the wife be the hero and the husband be the kind of the
Good,
the
good.
bad guy. I always do that. That usually works out. So let's say she asked him to do the dishes, and he said, "Yeah, sure." And night went away, and he didn't remember to do the dishes. He come downstairs, and the kitchen is in a mess. And instead of focusing on the dishes, she starts criticizing or blaming him by saying, "You lazy bum," and calling him all these names. They say that this
Mm,
is one of the ways that really, really had a negative impact on the relationship and the marriage. And so, what you could do, the antidote for criticism, is to complain without blaming, or without, attacking the character of your spouse. So you can say, I was really, you said I, you're saying
I
I,
feel, I
yeah,
feel. That's what I work. You say I feel
I
because
feel,
it's true. I work a lot with all these things you say as well.
okay,
But it's I feel because when you say I feel, you cannot the other one cannot blame you because if they say why are you feeling, who can blame you about your own feeling? And you can
that's
say
right.
sorry, that's how I feel, that's my feeling. You cannot blame for how I feel. Well, I take responsibility. So
Yeah.
yes, go on. I
Good, good. That's
do
exactly right. And and so you're able to focus on the issue and not on the character of your spouse. And so that's the antidote. Because the dishes are still dirty, and he really needs to sort it out because he did promise. So the issue is still there, but just focus on the issue and not on the character. That's the first one. The second one was defensiveness, and they found that usually defensiveness follows criticism,
Mm,
where
mm, mm,
he
mm.
starts to defend himself by saying, I was busy, and the antidote for defensiveness is to just take some of the blame, or some of the responsibility. Say, look, you're right. I should have done the dishes. I'm sorry. And just diffuse the whole thing. That's the second one. The third one is contempt, and they said that contempt is the chief of all the four horsemen of the apocalypse, because it was so
Is
significant.
contempt also linked with resentment? Do you think that it's
Yes,
linked? Yeah.
yes,
Mm.
yes,
I
yeah.
find
So
this the most complicated feeling, something people have difficulty going, you know, getting out of it. It's the most difficult.
yeah, so they kind of define contempt, to kind of describe it as basically the spouse, one or both of them. Sometimes both of them can be contemptuous towards each other. They feel like they're better than the other one, like they're more cultured, they're smarter, they came from a better background, they more educated, they get more money. The antidote for contempt is just really being humble and loving and appreciating your spouse. So recognizing that there are things about your spouse that are uniquely them and special and lovely and beautiful, and acknowledging that and focusing on that. It's the same as taking that positive attitude and not thinking that you're so great and so wonderful and you're married down. You are blessed to have this spouse of yours. They gave their life to you, and you're very lucky, and you should always look at it that way. So that's the antidote to contempt. And then the fourth one is stonewalling. So stonewalling, they found, again, the data showed that the men were 80% of the time, the men were the ones that were stonewalling. And stonewalling is when it kind of looks a bit like this, when they're in the middle of a conflict or an argument or something, and then the guy just totally shuts down. He's not
Mm.
looking at her. He's not talking. And in their love lab, they had these people strapped up to these body mechanisms that were reading like heart rate, sweat glands. They were even testing their urine to see levels of cortisol.
Oh.
And so, yeah, and so it was quite a thorough research, actually. And so while the guy wasn't saying anything and he wasn't looking at her and he looked totally neutral and blank, his heart rate was going crazy. And
So
so
that
they,
was
they
fear. So,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they say he was physiologically aroused. So after
mm,
the exercise, they would kind of ask him, say, Mr. Jones, on the kitchen table. Good to see you, my friend. They say, Mr. Jones, we noticed that you were quiet during this part of the exercise, but your heart rate was really going, crazy. What was happening? And so we say, the woman was driving me crazy, and I just couldn't, uh, you know, I just decided that I was just gonna just shut down and not say anything. And they thought the man was trying to self-soothe. He was physiologically aroused. He was emotionally, overwhelmed, and he was trying to figure out how to self-soothe. And so they encouraged the couples in these exercises. They'll encourage them to talk about some issue that was a feature in their marriage, some unresolvable conflict. And so when these couples are trying to, starting to kind of get really kind of, fighting with each other. They'll say, "Oh, guys, sorry, please forgive us. There's a bit of a technical issue. Just don't say anything for a few minutes. We're gonna try to fix this problem." And so they would stop the speaking, and the couples, they would be there. They will, and then their heart rate is going down, and they're calming down, And after about 20 minutes, they say, "Thanks, guys. Yeah, it's all working now. Thank you. Let's pick it up." They'll either talk about the same topic or they'll speak about something else. And sure enough, the couple, they were more able to talk, and in a more reasonable way without attacking each other. So they found that was a way that the couples can um, take a break. If you're in the middle of an argument with your spouse and you're feeling really
mm,
angry and overwhelmed, and you're physiologically aroused, recognize it, be emotionally intelligent, say, this is happening to me right now, and call for some time out. Go for a walk, do some yoga, breathe, as you say, and just calm down, and then you can come back to the problem with your prefrontal
Mm.
cortex engaged, and you can make some reasonable discussion with your spouse. And so another level on this sound relationship house theory was this concept of having joint meaning, shared meaning with each other, and also trying to make each other's life dreams come true. And they found that couples who were doing these things, they were really, really happy and they had successful marriages. They, their research was so good that they could see a couple, like, if like 5 minutes into like an introductory kind of discussion or argument, they could say with 94% accuracy how that discussion will end and how the relationship will end in the next 4 years.
To
94%
be to
accuracy.
be honest, to be honest, around when I see a couple, I can
Yeah.
tell you 95%, where it's how it's gonna go, whether it's getting for divorce or actually they're gonna work. Because, from all of this you said, I mean, I'm working very, very much like that. Because what you're trying to do with your program is create a sense of consciousness about your marriage, linked to your marriage, why you're having it, why you're there, and give them a sense of responsibility. And I do that as well with different exercise. What I use is the contract. So they're going to do a contract, a recontract of their marriage. And then at the end, they put another contract of what they learn and they sign. So it's very similar, what we do. I like, because maybe you have it more like more structure and nice words. I like that sit down negotiation. You bring more a metaphor of work, and I like that. This is although it's not work, but it's a sense of take it seriously. It's your responsibility to take it seriously. And that's what I'm trying to work with my couples, because as I said before, trying to make them understand that they are responsible. If they want to change this, they are responsible uh, to do that. So it's important, because some people are not, when you tell them again and they realize that, I think you empower them that they have this responsibility and they can do it. But I wanted to ask you, in what you were saying, what did they think about the factor of commitment? Because what I see is, what the couples that do work, I've noticed, and they work in their relations, they both have a strong value of commitment and wanting to work on the marriage and commit, and and also was to ask you, how are the attachment styles linked to that? Because you talked a lot about stuff that it's linked to attachment, and what did they say about the attachment? How did it affect the masters and the disasters, their attachment styles, kind of? Was there anything around that or not?
So they do explore attachment theory. In my program, I do actually get the couple to, in the first week, to do the
Mm-hmm.
attachment style assessment, and
Mm-hmm.
and
Nice.
they understand. So yeah, from the first week they understand what their attachment style is, and what their spouse's attachment style is, and what they can do to um, interact with each other based on that knowledge. Actually, so this sound relationship house is got commitment and trust as the two pillars or the walls of this house. And so
Mm.
commitment is very, very important, because without commitment, you're right, none of the other layers of the house really works, because it is the commitment and the trust that keeps it upright and standing. Um,
Exactly.
the in my program, I do explain to the couples that your commitment to this marriage is the thing that will really make this marriage work. And so it's like you're saying, empower them to, recognize that you're not there to do it for them. They need to do it themselves, and have that sense of responsibility for the marriage. And trust is and I like you mentioned attachment. My the concept whenever I think about trust, especially since I've started the program, is the idea of that securely attached child. When in Mary Ainsworth's study, when the mother came back, and then
Was
the child was like,
playing.
"Did you love me?" And
That's
but then the
the
child keeps
insecure attached. The securely attached child does not, it's okay, the
But but
insecure
but,
attached.
but, but initially, yeah, you're right. You're right. But initially, she was crying, when the mother was gone. But then when
But
she
she
came
was
back, she was soothed, and she knew she's like, my mother is going to come for me. I know I can rely on mom, and that sense of being able to rely on their mother is, in my opinion, one of the most dramatic explanation of the concept of trust. Because if you have confidence that you can rely on your mom or your spouse, then that is the thing that opens up for everything else. And it's kind of the lens through which you see your marriage. And so yeah, that's very, very, very powerful. How do you use the attachment theory in your work?
Well, we do explore the attachment styles as well. Um, so, and I think you can see the attachment styles playing into an argument. You know, somebody who is avoidant in a conflict. His attachment style is avoidant. Just to explain here, we have the different attachment styles, which is the somebody who is securely attached, and that means the idea of being secure. Attachment comes, as you said, since you are a baby, and the soothing and the care of your caregiver. So somebody who's securely attached is someone that grew up with a caregiver that was responsive, and felt that they will be safe. So that means they bring that into their relationships. And how they bring that is that they are able to soothe, they're able to control their emotions, express their feelings, put boundaries, say no when they want, have this confident kind of a sense into the relationships, not being used, all this stuff. And then you have the insecure attachment uh, child, which the parent gave missed signals, was not there, sometimes was there, so they're quite confused. And usually the people who have the insecure attachment are the ones where they are in a relationship where they lose sense of themselves, the sense of who they are. They become very clingy, very needy, everything's about a relationship, because they feel that all the love is coming from our partner, but they haven't learned to love a lot themselves. And then
Mhm.
you have the avoidant attachment, which is somebody who, the mother was usually rejecting or was not there. And, somebody who cannot do intimacy. So you would find usually people that would avoid intimacy in an argument. The avoidant attachment person will actually walk away, will not want to talk. And then you have the insecure attachment style that goes and nagging, why you don't talk to me, because they're afraid that they're going to lose them. And it's this dance of attachment dance. So
Yeah,
what you want to achieve is and then you have the disorganized attachment style, which is about, again, very disorganized person into relation. They don't know what they want. And but I don't see that. The mainly ones I see is anxious and anxious, insecure, and avoidant. Usually these two, it's like always together for some reason.
married.
and, and it's because they have to learn. And that's the work we have to do, is how we're going to make these two become securely attached. How do you make that? By bringing, mainly through the relationship with the therapist, and through that safe space of therapy, that sense of safety, that sense of trust, as you say, where they can become securely attached by expressing themselves openly, by expressing their expectations and being understood, being accepted, by listening, by communicating in a different way where it's more confident, more mature, by increasing the emotional intelligence, as you said before. They learn how to soothe their feelings. If somebody doesn't want to talk, you respect that. You wait. If you want to talk and you don't feel like, you don't. You learn to connect. So, and I think it is possible. That's the thing. Because you're attached, you
Yeah.
insecurely attached or avoidant or anxious, doesn't mean that that's it. That's a label you can
Yeah.
never. Of course
Good.
you can change that. And I want to
I'm
say
glad you
that
said that.
if the attachment is not just created by your caregiver. It's not like because who is no parent is perfect. Everybody does the best they
Yeah.
can. We cannot say
Yeah.
I'm anxious and secure because to your mother because you did that and it's all your fault. No, you take all this by your adolescence, by peers, by relations you had in the past. So it's a constant evolution of your attachment. But the good thing is that you can change it, and your goal is to become securely attached, you and your partner. But it takes work. And that's what I also say to my couples and to everyone. It takes work. And you know what? It's a long term, it's a non ending work. A relationship is a non ending work because what happens is you have to always keep, I think, one of the most important things, and I don't know if they had that in that experiment. I didn't hear you saying that. It's a sense of curiosity. You cannot lose your curiosity for your partner. You have to always have open eyes, new eyes of your relationship, because the trap is we end up thinking we know everything about them, and you can never know completely a person. You have to always have the curiosity, so to make new questions, to want to learn more, to want to new things, even if you do things you always did, see it with new eyes. It's that perspective that you have to keep working on, and plus all the rest we were talking about. So yeah, I don't know why I went there while talking about
No,
attachment,
good.
because
No,
I'm
no, that's
very
good.
passionate about curiosity. I think it's so important. I have this idea, I don't know if you saw, there's a video I've created years ago, and I call it the secret of healthy relationship. It's called Acquire. And I have inside
Okay.
there one of the things is curiosity. It's so important.
Yeah, I've
and
seen that
uh,
video.
and all that, and individuality as well, so important to keep that, because that's part of securely attachment. If you think about it, to keep your individuality, not lose your identity when you're in a relationship, is so important, because you're always one person. You have always to keep that relationship with yourself in order to have a healthy relation with another person. And curiosity, to always, if curiosity is what keeps us alive, traveling. Why will everybody loves traveling? Because you're curious to explore, to see how you bring that into the relationship. I don't say it's easy, but it's not impossible if you want to put your mind into it. You can always find new things, even in a fight. It's so in a conflict, so interesting that you see how, observe your partner. How why did they bring this behavior in this argument? What can I learn about them? How can I make questions afterwards about what triggered them? Why did they behave this time in this argument differently than other times? Or we'll have this inspection. You use that, no? Investigation. Use the investigation as well as that as well. Inspection. So attachment styles, going back to that, is linked to many, many things. In general, links how we relate, but you know, many different other things.
At what point would you say this, like, obviously, I don't imagine you would say, guys, you guys' marriage is over. You guys need to go your separate ways. I don't imagine you saying that to people.
I
Excuse
don't
me.
know.
But at what point, no, I don't.
Can
But
you
at what
imagine
point would you,
living?
no, I don't. At what point would you look at a couple and see them in a certain situation and think, actually, maybe they're better off away from each other?
That's something you cannot say to them, but you
No,
can
no,
say
not say
like,
to them, but just from
uh,
your own observation.
where I would say, I told you I would see it immediately when a couple comes. I can see immediately how uh, how committed they are to making it work. Sometimes it's obvious that one person is already out, and it's rarely that I've seen the person that came that was already out changing and staying in during the therapy. You see when two people come to you because they really want to work. You see it in the work they put, in how they express. When we do exercises that it's about expressing their love and their admiration, you see their, you know, I don't know, and I can see that. But as I said, it's equally okay if somebody comes and they want to work in finding a safe place to work in, following different paths, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you always have to commit. If somebody has taken the decision to divorce or take separate ways, I respect this decision. There's always a reason. I believe that, if somebody's not happy for their own reasons and they've decided they don't want to work this, it's okay. It's about changing path, changing moving.
But this concept, the covenantal process, I think it has an impact on not only romantic relationships, but parent
Friendships.
I was going to say parent teacher relationship, but but parents, not parent teacher, sorry, parent children relationship, teacher pupil relationship, and even
Friendships. I
in
can see it
yeah,
working
yeah,
with
yeah,
friendships. Hmm.
friendships as well, and in the like professional arena, like between the boss and the staff.
Mm,
That a bit of that. In fact, my master's degree really was work psychology, so that was kind of where it started from. But I want to kind of explore it and see where it goes eventually. It might take 10 years, but I think there's something to it. I'm
for
actually thinking
sure. It
about
sounds very
writing
interesting.
a book as well. So, but I hope me and you keep in touch, and I hope
Yes,
we get to collaborate more in the future. And I
for
really
sure.
appreciate
Thank you.
you and your expertise and your knowledge. And you've got a very nice way about you. You're very confident but nice, and you're very warm, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Chris, namaste. Thank you so much.